In the past few years, Hollywood has stopped asking the question, what can we give to audiences and viewers, and instead is now asking the question, what can we get away with? And there is no better example that truly highlights the shift from creativity to straight up greed and milking than the non-stop remakes of classic films we're getting. Instead of writers' rooms attempting to craft a new IP that resonates with audiences, developing new franchises with unique stories and characters, fresh faces, fresh stories, we are getting recycled crap non-stop, whether in the form of sequels, spin-offs, remakes. We're sick of it. Studios are just spamming out buzzwords for hit titles and using the fact that they had one hit in order to spin that into something new, and people are just getting sick of it. And I fall under people because American Psycho 2025, the sequel nobody asked for, is a YouTube video that landed in my recommended. And when nobody asked for it, you gotta think, why did they do it?
American Psycho is one of the best films ever made, and its popularity continues to soar, even 2 decades after its release. Even Christopher Nolan said it's one of his favorite movies. All because it's a hilarious but deep mirror reflecting the absurdity of modernity.
Now, I can't help but think the fact that it's remained relevant and even spiked in relevancy in a lot of ways. You had 2022 Sigma edits, you have 2024 ironic Sigma edits, and you have whatever 2025 is gonna do with this film. The reality is the movie has actually gotten more popular with time, even though it's aged, which is a weird effect for something to have and should be a positive indicator that it's timeless, that it's great, that it's a message that resonates with people, you know, like the commentary within the movie is doing something to people. And I understand the want or need or whatever to make money off the fact that the hype is still strong with this film, this IP, but there has to be another way to do it than to just make a fucking pointless sequel. Like, I wouldn't even be mad if you took Christian Bale and made like a mini series about American Psycho, like a prequel, The Days Before Psycho, whatever the fuck, right? But the fact that it's a recasting, it's a sequel, it's at the zenith of the hype, it's just sort of, for lack of a better word, lazy, uninspired. Uninspired's a great word because it's literally the fact that the reason this is happening is external, which concerns me. When it was made originally, it was simply because this person had a vision for a film and wanted to artistically craft a piece of media. Now, I cannot help but feel like it's not that same reason, and that is most likely going to compromise the quality of the product.
Now Lionsgate is looking to readapt the book, and people are watching how things are going to play out with bated breath. When people first heard that a new American Psycho was in the works, nobody was interested. The original director and Christian Bale had already done a brilliant job bringing Bateman to life, and many just felt it was a cheap disservice to all they had suffered to bring the character to the big screen. It's almost completely against the original movie's themes to make a cheap knockoff version of it, and the knockoff version that did come after the original American Psycho was god-awful. And many people at this point are just completely tired of remakes as a whole, as it seems like all studios ever seem to produce these days are remakes.
And that's the general sentiment that I keep echoing. On top of that, I think the only time I have appreciated a sequel is when the movie itself that it's based on is literally incomplete, right? So you look at Infinity War and Endgame, there's a trilogy, right? The story is continuing. It may as well be one big movie. But when it's like Alvin and the Chipmunks, and then Alvin and the Chipmunks 2, 3, 4, and I think there's a 5th, at a certain point, what the fuck are we doing with these chipmunks? How many situations can you put these little fuckers in before people are like, what are we watching? And it's certainly the same what are we watching question being asked when you have a banger movie that has a start, middle, and end, keyword end, that you're now digging up the grave from and trying to get some shit out of it post-mortem. Little weird. No one likes necrophiliacs, alright? Leave it alone. It had a good life, but now it's over. I just feel like a Fortnite skin would have been enough of a payday to keep everyone at Lionsgate happy.
From Gladiator 2 to new Star Wars movies to new live-action remakes. It's like Hollywood has run out of ideas. That or they're just too scared to greenlight any new ideas because every new project is an utter failure. When there's hundreds of millions of dollars at play, you can understand why. But the worst part about most remakes is that they always lack the heart of the original films. Just looking at every Disney remake since 2017, all the way up to the upcoming Snow White movie, and you can see why people are hesitant about the new American Psycho movie.
So I kind of understand the dilemma that these studios face. You have option A, which is to make a movie on a pre-existing IP, and you're leveraging people's interest in the IP to result in ticket sales and box office performance, which has historically worked. If people like the first thing, and you say, hey, this is similar to the thing you like, they're gonna probably try to watch it again. But when it's all you ever do, it eventually gets old and people are tired of it, right? So we're kind of saying no to that. If you take a risk with a new IP, the risk you're taking is bigger because you don't have that initial audience interest. Yeah, maybe you can get like a few famous actors in the film, right? You can stack up the cast. But if it flops, it's really gonna flop. The sequel has the support system of the people who went because they liked the first one. You don't have that support system, so it is less risky to do an original film. But we need a fucking risk taker. That's what we need. We need a goddamn risk taker. It's been a while since y'all took any goddamn risks, okay? Last movie I watched that was really good was, I think, Oppenheimer in 2023, and before that I don't even know what it was. So that should be a problem. That should sound off some alarms.
After Lionsgate's disastrous 2024, as over the last year the studio has had many failures, and this worries fans that with all of these failures, Lionsgate is going to play it safe. But a project like American Psycho is definitely not safe. If they remade American Psycho and made it a cheap knockoff, it'll bring more hatred towards this film than any other in history. In the new upcoming movie, they could just make a project a scene-for-scene remake. They could do something like Joker 2, or worse, they could blindly adapt this to be a more sanitized version. Everyone knows that if they film the project focusing more on just appealing to the studio's executives, rather than a passion for the actual story and its meaning, it would be a colossal failure. But as of late 2024, it seems like this might not be the case. In fact, people's opinions of this remake are starting to actually change, as helming the project was none other than Luca Guadagnino. Now, Luca is an award-winning Italian director who was exactly what the upcoming project needed, as his films are known for being emotionally complex and fairly thought-provoking. Pair that with his love for lavish visuals and you have a perfect combination for a fresh spin on the American Psycho movie.
And this is the sort of thing where I actually want to be proven wrong so bad. I like watching movies. I like good movies. I feel like there's sort of a niche in YouTube where it's people that non-stop spam videos about how much like Hollywood sucks and this thing sucks, and I'm sure I've done videos like that, but there's channels where their entire content is like every single day, it's 2 or 3 videos a day about Hollywood this, Hollywood that, and it's like update on the same movies, right? I think these people at a certain point gain more from movies looking bad and audiences disliking movies than movies actually performing better.
I can't eat! I'm broke, nigga! I'm broke!
I'm not one of those people. I genuinely want good movies to come out. I want good games to come out. Now listen, if a movie does bad, do I have an interest in covering the failure that took place for money? Yes. But I also have an interest as a viewer to enjoy a goddamn good movie, right? That's simply put. And I like American Psycho. I hope American Psycho 2 is good.
Most of his work feels more focused on artistry than anything else, something that's absolutely needed for this remake. And in a world of fast-paced, hollowed-out cheap, massive budget movies, this could be exactly what audiences need, and hopefully bring a new golden age to movies like the late 90s and early 2000s. This is why people are genuinely curious now to see what he'll do with the adaptation, especially as he seems to take far too much pride in his work for this to be a cash grab. And it's hard to believe that he'd compromise on his artistic vision just for profit. And what settled people's opinions of this was his assurance that the American Psycho movie wouldn't be a remake of the original 2000 film. Instead, it would be another adaptation of the book. And while he does have a good history with remakes, stylistically it's better that this version of American Psycho is an adaptation, as many of his projects have been booked to film adaptations, so at least he knows what he's doing here. And then joining him will be Scott Burns. While Burns has an uncredited role behind projects like Star Wars' Rogue One and James Bond's No Time to Die, his credited projects are just as impressive. He was one of 3 writers responsible for The Bourne Ultimatum, and has sole writing credits on films like The Laundromat and The Report, which he also directed, which makes it clear that both of these guys have the background and skill to create something very interesting. However, as talented as the director and the writer needs to be, people's main concern is who's going to actually play Patrick Bateman.
Well, yeah, I mean, when people talk about American Psycho, they're talking about the goddamn American Psycho, right? The edits are of this guy. He's more of the movie than anybody else involved. That's the reality of it. And I think the issue this guy's gonna run into is that he's battling against perfection, because no matter what happens, people are going to compare this adaptation to the 2001, right? That's going to happen. Even if it's great, you're comparing it against perfection. That's a problem, right? When you get outshined, you're outshined. It doesn't matter how hard you shine, you got outshined. And that is the trade-off you make when you use the same IP and branding of another film. A good parallel here is the 2 TV series Dexter and You. The Dexter came out before You, and the similarity between these two shows is the protagonist is kind of like a creepy killer who has to also remain composed, right? I like both of the protagonists in each show because they both encapsulate that sort of persona, but they're different. They have their own idiosyncrasies. If You was made to be an adaptation of Dexter and Joe Goldberg was instead Dexter Morgan, I would have no choice but to compare the two, and I don't know how I'd feel about that.
Christian Bale's performance as Patrick Bateman is part of why he's such a big star today. He would do everything he could to get the role, so much so that he was paid barely anything to be Patrick Bateman.
And then we got the money, yay! But what our agents forgot to do, our agents at the time, forgot to do was to include us in the package. And so we raised the money and then they said, right, and the two of you, bye-bye. But I went a little bit psycho myself in that I just said, no, I'm still making the film.
Yet he was so obsessed with the character and how funny he really is. And because of his commitment to this role, it's what made the movie so great in the first place. And it's why today he's even seen as an icon for many people around the world. Christian Bale's ability to morph into the character so completely became legendary, nailing the performance in a way that most people would never expect. In fact, he was so believable that his co-stars didn't even realize that he wasn't American until after filming. People know that whoever takes on this iconic role will have to outdo or at least match Bale if the project is to succeed, which is an incredibly high bar to achieve.
I don't really understand why. The film is already very modern and I can't think of any way to interpret it differently. I'm saying the same thing. The studio grabbed the top talent and decided to just like redo a book adaptation. What I don't understand is why not just craft something new? Draw inspiration from the movie but make a different fucking movie. Like do what You did, as in the show You. I highly doubt nobody in the You writers room didn't mention Dexter Morgan, right? They literally have it in the script of one of the episodes. They compare Joe to Dexter Morgan. There was obviously some similarities in the character development, right? But they're different shows, they're different properties, and each of them are liked because of their distinction.
Lionsgate seems to think that Austin Butler is up to the challenge. Now, Butler is a great actor. While he's been in the game for a few years, it's taken a while for him to feature in projects that truly show off his talents. However, opportunities arose when he was given the chance to feature in Dune. And while he did great in that role, people questioned if he'd actually be able to portray Patrick Bateman successfully. Would he dedicate himself to the character the same way that Bale did? Well, when you look at the Elvis movie, this might actually be a possibility. In 2019, Butler was granted the opportunity to become Elvis, and for 3 years he thought of nothing but Elvis, and it massively paid off, as not only was the film a success, but he won several awards for his performance. According to the actor, he delved so deeply into trying to become Elvis that he actually forgot what he sounded like, having to hire a voice coach to relearn his own accent.
I mean, I had a dialect coach just to help me not sound like Elvis.
Oh, wow.
Film.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
I don't think anyone is taking away this guy's ability to act, right? I mean, he's clearly a professional. I think the point that's trying to be made is that these talents could be better put to use on a different project, right? A great example of why you wouldn't want this to happen with the American Psycho IP is because you look exactly what happened with Spider-Man. You had all these different actors portray Spider-Man in the early 2000s, and now all people do is compare them to each other. Who was the best Spider-Man, right? Imagine if that happened with Iron Man. How fucking weird would that be? And eventually they got it sorted out, but imagine like halfway through the 2010s, Robert Downey Jr. just got swapped with some other guy with a goatee. How weird would that be? Even if he was a great actor, you're not Iron Man. That's how that works. And this is, I feel like, the exact same thing. Like, why would you want a great actor to try to portray Patrick Bateman when audiences are just going to compare him to Christian Bale? They're not looking at the novel and being like, wow, this is a great adaptation of this character. They're like, nah, we have a better one from 2000. This guy's an imposter. That's what's gonna happen, right? Am I crazy for saying this? Like, I don't want to be cynical, but I feel like I've seen this try to take place before with beloved characters. And again, look, I'll watch the movie, and if he does a great job, I'll give him his goddamn props. Like, I hope he does do a good job. But like, this is how this goes, right? Hey, did you see that new American Psycho movie? Yeah, I did. What'd you think? It was good, but the original was better. That caveat is like the only thing people take away when they hear your review of it. I feel like that's not cynicism, that's just like realism. You have big shoes to fill, you know?
But it might be almost impossible to top Bale's performance, especially as his role as Patrick Bateman is so synonymous with the movie and story itself. So while the team around this film seems to be great, there's still far much more at play for this movie to succeed. As American Psycho isn't just great because of the directing and acting, it's because of what it says about our own society and how Patrick Bateman connects so strongly with young men today. You see, the original 2000 edition of American Psycho was never really a commercial success to begin with. Now it's considered a highly successful movie, but back then, it was just some weird niche movie that people didn't really understand. On the surface, it seemed to be nothing more than just a spoiled investment banker going on a murderous rampage, where he faces no consequences for anything he does. But this is a horrible way of looking at the movie, and really takes away from the nuance and comedic elements of the story. There's a reason that so many young men today, especially those belonging to Gen Z, have turned Patrick Bateman into something of an icon. You'll see him on TikTok clips, Instagram reels, memes, posters. He's beloved even after 24 years. And it's not because people are idolizing the murderous aspects of him. It's everything else around it and Patrick Bateman's place in society, repressing his hatred of the life he lives and the people he has to surround himself with, all while doing everything he can to look perfect and just fit in. All the discipline, all the hours of self-improvement, all of this just to become the ideal man with a plastic mask and live a hollowed out life in a giant megacity.
And we're all hoping there's no missing word before the adaptation, right? When they say modern adaptation. And the biggest thing that I think everyone should look out for, and I guess if you're looking forward to this adaptation, pay close attention for the word modern before adaptation. That is the shit test. That's what you gotta look out for. Whenever you hear modern adaptation, you gotta fucking run. What that means is they've decided the portrayal of certain messages within the original is not appropriate in today's, I guess, paradigm. And so we've done some revisions to sort of sanitize the product. I think he said that word, which is instantly a movie killer. Like that is going to fucking neuter a movie specifically like this. Specifically a movie for 14-year-old Sigmas. If you try to do anything to make it woke or to modernize it or to subvert some of the, messages from the original in any sort of way by patronizing, you know what I'm saying, any funny business, people are gonna throw up. They're gonna throw tomatoes at the fucking projector. Like, that's what's going to happen. My keys didn't like the sound of that one, bro. Listen, the point is, like, you're playing with goddamn fire, you know? This is a character that a lot of autistic incels connect with, for better or for worse, you know? Bro, if you turn this guy into a fucking normie or whatever you could do with this that doesn't make him appeal to that, that's a bad thing, okay? I'm sorry to say this, but that's a bad thing. Look, bro, even normal people like that this character appealed to autistic incels. Like, that's how this works. You can't change that.
And a lot of young people today feel like they live that life on a much smaller level. It's just an exaggerated version of what current society is like for most young men. Even Christian Bale noted in an interview that when he went to Wall Street, people identified with the character, not even in a sarcastic way, but purely just because of the way he lives.
When there still was the Wall Street trading floors and everything, I went and visited, all different levels of people at Wall Street, but the guys on the trading floor, when I arrived there before making the film, I got there and a bunch of them, they were going, "Oh, Patrick Bateman," and patting me on the back and going, "Oh yeah, we love him." And I was like, "Yeah, ironically, right?" And they were like, "What do you mean?"
His ability to knuckle down and dedicate hours of his day physically improving himself, the thoughts he has about the people around him, the superficial materialistic outlook on the world, and how it's crushing his soul every day. While obviously Bateman isn't the character you want to look up to, he's almost a sympathetic person. If you see the murders he commits as just being within his head, more manifestations of his hatred towards the world he lives in, suddenly Patrick Bateman becomes a lot more understandable. And as a result, many young men see themselves reflected in him. Their insecurities and anxieties, all the fake gestures they have to do around the people they work with, often leads to a mask hiding their repression. Which is why millions of people feel comforted by the idea that they're not the only ones dealing with these feelings. If a seemingly well put together man like Patrick Bateman can completely fall apart at the sight of a business card, they too are validated for their thoughts.
And that's why the word crash out has taken over the lexicon, because this is a movie about a guy who goes through a rampage of crash outs. Like, he goes, murdering is the ultimate crash out. He's just killing people. He's an American psycho. And they show that they resonated by making words that describe the theme of the movie, which is psychopathy. Crashing out is doing something psychopathic. You're saying, fuck it, fuck the consequences, I'm doing something I shouldn't, I'm crashing out. Like, I could go on and on about this, but the point is, you cannot tamper with this. This is a box that says fragile, you know what I'm saying? One false move, you drop this, the materials inside shatter. Anyways, if you want to go watch the rest of this video for yourself, I'll link it down below. We'll see what they can do with this. I mean, seems like a pretty high risk, low reward task to take on, to be honest with you. But again, I'll try to be optimistic. We'll see how it does. And yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. See you guys later.